Camera for Daredevil Season 2, Episode 7, Semper Fidelis, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. Obviously, was looking forward to this episode. This season, I just think, has been on fire, and they just keep building. They really do, and I can't help but just love every episode. And I know there are people that saying, oh, this season's very unwritten, but I completely disagree. I think that what they're doing this season is combining so many different elements, because just like the last episode I said kind of felt like a Mission Impossible movie, this episode felt like the People versus O.J. Simpson. I mean, it was so cool the way this was done. This felt like an actual court show. Like, it felt like I was watching a regular courtroom drama. And the way that Daredevil can just combine all these different elements together seamlessly, it feels like it'd be convoluted, but it feels so natural, and they do such a great job with it. And this episode, once again, was great. There were some really great, smaller, emotional moments here. There were some great action scenes here. This episode really had everything you loved and everything that I love about the show. And let's just get into it, because as usual, there was a lot to talk about. I love the way this episode starts, though, because, again, like I said, it really felt like an American crime story, The People versus O.J. Simpson, and Frank is very similar to that of O.J. Simpson. Now, I'm not saying that, O.J. Simpson is, should be, we should feel as bad for O.J. Simpson as we do for Frank. I won't say that, but they're in a very similar situation, where they don't feel they've done anything wrong. The difference is that Simpson has never admitted that he's wrong. Frank has always thought he's wrong, and Newly has seen the light thanks to Karen, and you can see him washing himself in preparation for court, and we get this really great montage of all the jury members basically saying if they're for or against what Frank is doing, and some, strongly approve it, others are strongly condemning it, saying that he definitely should go to jail for it, others are saying that he's a hero, and it's just a really interesting scene. I love the way that that's done, and you have to wonder, I mean, there are people like this, obviously, in New York City. I mean, New York City is one of the most crime-infested cities ever, so this has to be somewhat relatable. I'm sure there's no one like the Punisher out there necessarily, but you have to wonder, if he was around, I mean, what would our response to be? I mean, I think that's a big part of what they're trying to show there. So Matt and Foggy negotiate with the judge, concluding that they are content with the jurors selected for the trial, and Frank is escorted into the courtroom. It's crowded. He stands with an American flag standing behind him, ready for trial, and that just got me so pumped for this episode. Like, I am so ready for this. I don't care that most of this episode is going to be a trial. I want to see how this plays out, because, again, it's an element of the show we haven't really seen before. Even though they are lawyers, we haven't really seen them on a court case. We saw them last year, helping out some cases here and there, but most of the case last year was either the extended Karen case or the whole Wilson Fisk case. This is something completely different. They have to defend this man, and it's a really interesting way it's playing out. We see Karen, Matt, and Foggy go over files at the office. Foggy reveals that they are considering an insanity plea, that he feels that Frank might just be insane, and Karen claims that Frank might not be crazy, and that she doesn't see it that way, and Matt agrees with her, and Karen wants to get Reyes kicked off the case, because she feels that Reyes is basically there just to sentence Frank to death. And I mean, Reyes is, I forgot this, that we did see Reyes in Jessica Jones, the season finale, so she's not, a new character, like, we have seen her before. She has a lot of things going on with her, and I don't really know what it is. Like I said in my last review, I don't know if she's just doing this because it's her job, or if she really has something against Frank. And after this episode, I really feel she has a personal vendetta against Frank, and I don't really know what it is. And it's very interesting to see what's going on there. Matt assures her she doesn't have to do it alone, but she says that Frank doesn't scare her. They kiss, and Karen leaves. She has no problem facing Frank, because Frank is the one that she was able to, get him to see the light. And now she kind of feels like she needs to help him out. Karen then heads to Frank's room, first through security, where a couple of paper clips are confiscated. She's escorted to a room where Frank is cuffed to a table and left alone inside. She tells him she wants to bring a character witness to the stand, but Frank doesn't want to bring up PTSD because it will insult people who are actually going through it. He doesn't just want to make up something. He wants to tell the true story, just like Karen wanted to tell the true story with what Reyes did. And this is different, though. She wants to make sure Frank has as good as a chance of getting off, scot-free as he does. And Frank, I'm sure, wants that too. But what I like about Frank is that he wants to do the right thing. He doesn't just want to make something up so that way he's free. He doesn't want to do that. And he tells Karen he wants answers, but Karen tells him it doesn't matter if he doesn't help, because he'll go to jail for all these murder charges. And if he doesn't do anything, then he'll just go to jail. And Frank tells her to find his colonel, but to drop the PTSD defense, it's not a good idea, and he's not suffering through it. So they need to not make it seem like it is PTSD, because it's not that. And again, it's a very good scene. I like the way that Frank and Karen are bonding, and a lot of this is Karen having power over Frank. You kind of see that Frank is a bit broken right now. Frank is kind of wounded. He's not really the Punisher anymore. He now is Frank Castle, and I love seeing that. I thought they did a really great job with that, and especially when you look back at, not 4 episodes ago, he was this vigilante that was, cleaning up the city, trying to get out any bad criminals he felt should be gone, and now he feels completely different. He feels like he's broken, and I really do feel bad for him, honestly. Whenever Frank comes on screen, I get close to tears just because of how great John Bernthal portrays his character. Please, just Emmys, 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 Emmys. I can't say it enough. Just give him an Emmy. Matt practices opening speech, but then gets a call from Elektra, and things with Elektra get a lot more complicated in this episode. Like, they were getting a bit complicated in the last one. You could tell that definitely he had to, make up a lie saying that he was dealing with a new client, and they didn't know who he was talking about. But this is really the episode where it starts to get very complicated, and I really enjoyed that. You know that Elektra's there to complicate his life, but again, I don't really know if Elektra made this whole thing up, but this episode, I think, proves that she definitely didn't make this thing up. There actually is something going on. And she found the man who encoded the ledger, but they couldn't understand, and she just wants to go beat him up. She feels that she should just beat him up, and Foggy walks in, asks Matt what's going on, and basically that they have to go to court, but Matt says he'll be there. Matt turns her down, but she insists he meet her in 2 hours because, he wants to deal with his court case. He wants to focus on that. He has a lot of other stuff going on, and I like that he tells her, look, and he was very nice about it. He wasn't rude or anything. He said, I am facing the biggest case of my life right now. That's what he said. I mean, he wasn't, playing around here. He said to her, I'm facing the biggest case of my life right now. I will be there in 2 hours, but I cannot help you right now. So a man then follows the Asian woman down the stairs, making Chinese remarks, but they insist that they aren't Chinese, and he's insulted them, but he speaks in their language now and hands them some cash before kicking them out. As he tries to snort some cocaine, we see already how bad this man is. Elektra and Daredevil then reveal themselves. They kick him to the ground. They tell him they want him to translate the ledger for him, because obviously the ledger's in Chinese, and neither of them know that. Daredevil pushes him against the glass wall, threatens to throw him down the 35 floors, which eventually convinces the man to help, because, that obviously got him to do that. So Elektra tosses him the book, asks him to translate for him, and Daredevil watches the glass break. The man reveals how to decode the encryption and tells him that there's a shipment coming to the Bay Ridge yard tonight, and Elektra thanks him for the help, kicks him in the face as they leave, and I just loved the way that scene was done. And the way these two are kind of teaming up now, you can definitely tell they're teaming up, and this is so much more than Matt saying, I'm going to help you with this and then you're gone. It kind of seems like Elektra's stuck in his life and he really can't get rid of her at this point. He kind of is just accepting it seems. So Foggy then examines photos of dead people, and I love the scene between Foggy and Karen. They've really done a great job this season of having a lot of interaction between Foggy and Karen, but something I think they've done even a better job with is show Foggy's rage. I mean, he has genuine reasons to be upset in this episode. He basically has to take this case on his own. He has to be the one for Matt because Matt's not there. He has to be the Matt Murdock here because Matt's not, available right now. And we see Foggy examining photos of dead people. Karen brings in some food, but Foggy has no appetite, but he'll take some coffee. She asks where Matt is, and Foggy tells her he's working on his opening statements, which obviously is not what's going on, but that's what Matt said he was doing. And she tells Foggy that Frank won't go for the PTSD angle, and Karen tells Foggy the chief medical examiner will be testifying for Reyes, report that each of Frank's family members were killed by one bullet. And I love this scene because this is a scene where Karen says, this is why we're defending him. You don't understand it, but this is why we're defending him. This is what he's been through. But Frank remembers many more than that. And she wants to help Frank because he's living in a nightmare. And that's really what it's all about. That Frank is suffering and they want to end it. And Foggy wants to attempt to get the medical examiner to corroborate Frank's story on the stand. And now that he knows what's going on, he's much more supportive of helping Frank out. He doesn't just want him, he doesn't just think he's insane. He knows what he's going through. And I like seeing that. It's a good scene. And again, it didn't feel big, but it felt important. Like, it really felt like an important scene because it was an important scene. They did a very good job with that scene. Really great scene. Definitely really enjoyed that. Great stuff there. A train then rolls through the Bay Ridge yard as Elektra and Daredevil walk in. They find the train they're looking for and open it, but dirt pours out and armed men approach. The men search for Daredevil and Elektra, but find themselves on the receiving end of a 2-on-4 ass kicking, which it's such a cool scene the way this was done. Elektra's hurt afterwards, but there are more men coming, and Daredevil puts her mask back on and helps her up. The men sweep through the warehouse and a fight ensues. Several shots are fired, but they're all misses, and Elektra pulls the trigger on a man, but the gun is out of bullets again. Amazing action as usual. I mean, this show just, when it comes to action, it's amazing. The fight continues until Daredevil and Elektra both win. Elektra's been cut on her arm and neck, and I like seeing this. Something I think the show does very well is show that these characters can get hurt. They're not completely invincible, and even Elektra, someone that enjoys violence and, kind of is, like, obsessed with it, and just, it kind of just makes her excited, and even her sexual desire is part of, because of violence and things like that. Even someone like that, they can seriously get hurt, and I like seeing that. And we get this really great scene here with Matt and Elektra, probably the most genuine scene we've had with them so far, because Matt's been giving her a lot of mixed signals, obviously. He's been saying, like, oh, I want you gone, but yet he's still helping her out, and I feel like this episode really gets them to understand each other. Like, Matt really understands Elektra after the scene. Elektra kind of understands Matt more, which I really like the way this was done. A really great scene, and I like that it's not really romantic. It just, they're really understanding each other, and they did a good job with that. He gives her, they head back to Matt's apartment where Matt stitches up Elektra's neck. He gives her a towel, tells her to keep pressure on it, and she asks Matt what he tells people about his scars, but he, dodges answering. He doesn't answer, which is interesting that he doesn't answer about it. Maybe it's just something he doesn't think about. He doesn't really want to tell her. I find that very interesting, though, that he didn't answer that question. He takes the towel and cleans up the cut on Elektra's arm, and Elektra puts her hand on a scar on Matt's abs and the two above his chest, and Matt tells her that they're from Nobu, as is the one on his side and the two on his back, and I like that they're just talking about scars. Literally, this entire conversation is just, how'd you get this scar? Where'd this scar come from? I mean, it doesn't seem like a huge deal, but it is because, it shows again that they have history and they have these scars for a reason. She takes his hand, puts on a scar on her leg, and the conversation turns more intimate. It becomes a lot less about scars as Matt asks her where she went in all the time, and she says that as far from her as she could, and he asks if she found what she was looking for, but she only found that she was alone. She didn't come back because he doesn't know what she knows, and he deserves better, she feels. She just feels that, and I thought that was interesting that she said he deserves better. She knows that she's kind of controlling, and I like seeing that. And Matt tells her to lay down and get some rest as he heads off the couch. He studies Elektra as she sleeps, struggling to sleep himself. It's just hard for him to do everything that's going on. I mean, Matt has to be one of the most stressed out individuals ever, really, because there's so much going on in his mind. He's thinking about, what's going on with Elektra, if he's going to be able to get her out of his life, or even if he's starting to maybe care for a little bit, because I feel like after this episode, he's starting to understand her more, maybe get less irritated by her. Definitely, I think you start to see that, and they're bonding definitely better. But then he's got Karen as well. He's got Karen, who not only is his girlfriend, has no idea what's going on. He can't tell her what's going on because he knows what that's going to do to her, and she's so involved with Frank's case right now. He's worried about the case because he knows that they don't do well. They're going to lose Nelson and Murdoch, and then Foggy he's worried about too, because Foggy, clearly knows, we don't know if he knew Elektra or anything, which we find out, really that he does in this episode. We'll get into that, but there's so much going through his head at this point, and I loved seeing that. It's just such a great scene that he's not being able to sleep, and he's watching Elektra sleep, but eventually fading to the sound of her breathing, and he falls asleep, and I just love the way this scene was done. And it wasn't them arguing, it wasn't them upset, they're just really starting to understand each other more. Like, Elektra's understanding that Matt is, irritated by her, and that she's very controlling, and that she's a bit too much for him, and even that he deserves someone better. I mean, that's a lot for Elektra to say. She literally said, I know you deserve someone better, and she knows that he doesn't necessarily, that she's not great for him, but she just had this attraction. She needed to pull him back in. She needed his help, and it really is coming across as genuine. It's no longer coming across as Elektra being crazy. I understand if someone's like, oh, that's a character change, but I feel like that's been there all along. I feel like the way that they've been portraying it is the way Matt's been seeing it. Matt has been seeing this as this insane girl back in his life who told him to kill. It's horrifying for him to think about, but now he's starting to understand that she is vulnerable, and that she's been through a lot of shit, and that he she's not as dangerous as he really thought she was, and I like seeing that. Now, of course, she is still dangerous, obviously, because she is going to get him to kill. She's still trying to get him to kill, but I think he's just understanding her more. So next morning, Matt quickly readies himself for court. Elektra awkwardly leaves, wishes him luck in court, and he's right back in the courtroom. So Karen and Foggy sit in the courtroom, questioning where Matt could be. Frank tells Foggy he is a man down, and Foggy attempts to prepare himself for an opening statement. Reyes delivers her opening to the jury, citing 30 people that Frank tortured and executed. You can tell that she has done very deep research of what Frank has done. She's going to make sure that he is nothing but a cold-blooded killer, because that's what he is to her. He's a cold-blooded killer, and she claims justice is not Frank's to serve, but rather the courts and the jurors. And I love Foggy's opening statement here. What he said, I mean, again, Foggy was the one person that really seemed to not be on Matt and Karen's side. He seemed to be on the other side of things. Like, he was kind of thinking, is, Frank really someone we can trust? But you can tell that he really understands, Frank now, and he stands up and proceeds. He nervously addresses the jurors, stumbling to find his words, and Frank looks on, and you can tell that, this is basically what Matt was trying to say. Foggy drops his note cards, starts his speech, and he drops his note cards because he doesn't want to read off them. He wants to say how he really feels, and he doesn't want to read something that's scripted. And he starts his speech about being 19 years old and enduring hot sun and danger because you have orders. And he cites the desire to see the people at home who love you. He goes on to say that no one helped when Frank's family was slain, but Reyes never helped resolve the issue. She never did anything to help him, and she didn't really think about that. And he concludes by asking the jury to keep an open mind and tells them that this is not about a killer, it's about seeking justice. That's really what this is about. No one's helped Frank, and they want to be the ones to do that, and you can tell they're trying to make Reyes look as bad as possible, which they should, because Reyes doesn't really see Frank as he really is. She sees Frank as the Punisher. She doesn't see Frank as Frank Castle, that she just sees him as Punisher. I mean, remember, when she refers to him, she only refers to him as Punisher, which is very interesting, definitely, but you can tell they're doing whatever they can to make sure they win, and I love seeing that. So outside the courtroom, Foggy, Karen, and Matt compliment Foggy's speech and plan for the medical examiner who will be called to the stand tomorrow, and Matt wants to question him, and Foggy's reluctant to give Matt a chance after he didn't show up because they don't know if he's really on this case. I mean, he keeps just randomly leaving, and Foggy's angry but allows Matt the chance because, Matt was the one that was going to give the speech anyway, but, I like that Foggy kind of is in control here. Like, he's okay with giving this speech on his own. Last season, Foggy would not have been okay with that. He would have been very nervous, but I feel like this is really making him more confident. Like, Matt being MIA is really showing Foggy, all right, I got this. I can do this. I don't need Matt. Even though we have Matt, I don't need him really. I can do this on my own. I can intimidate people. I can question them, and I think we're really seeing that with Foggy this season. They're doing a very good job with that, and I know there are people that didn't like Foggy last season because of, him and Matt's arguments and what have you, but I really have been loving the direction they're going in this season, maybe even more than last season. I really think they're proving how great of a character Foggy really is, definitely. So Matt and Karen plan for the questioning back in Matt's apartment. The conversation turns to Karen going to law school, and this scene with Matt and Karen is very interesting because a lot of people wonder why the scene ended the way it did. We'll get into that, but basically she talks about Karen going to law school, and Karen brings up the night that they first met, which Matt claims to think about all the time, which I'm sure, I don't know if he does, but knowing Matt, he probably does. And Karen says that she sat in the police station alone, afraid of the world, until Foggy and Matt came along. They trusted her, they went back to Matt's apartment, and Karen remembers all the details. She asks Matt if he believes in when the Devils of Hell's Kitchen does, and Matt says he believes in the law. She asks what he thinks about when the law fails and who will protect them, and then Matt tries to dodge the question, like he doesn't try to answer it, but they have a different opinion on whether or not Frank should be in jail. Matt claims that no one has a right to kill and that Frank should be behind bars, while Karen brings up justice and says that vengeance works for Frank, and it's a very awkward moment. I mean, you see that this is a really big disagreement, and they're not yelling at each other, they're not yelling, they're just really strongly stating their cases, and she does not at all agree with, what Matt does, that he does not kill. She's basically questioning his morals, and of course she doesn't know the whole thing that Matt doesn't kill because she doesn't know he's Daredevil, but this angers Matt, you can tell, this really makes him upset because he loves Karen, he really does. I think he does want to be with her, he does want to be in this relationship with her, but he is flawed, and I think it shows us here. He suggests Karen leave, and she does, and it makes sense why he told her to just abruptly leave. One, because she just questioned his morals, and anyone that does that, he doesn't really want to talk to because that's what he believes, and he doesn't really want any other belief, really. But also because, he's, I think, struggling with does he really care about Karen? Like, he's with Karen, obviously, but can he tell her his secret? Because I feel like that needs to come out at some point. It's got to come out this season. If it doesn't come out this season, I'm going to be very surprised, and I really feel that's where we're headed. And I also think this ends the idea that Karen's hiding something. I don't think she's hiding anything. I think what they're showing is that what Karen went through is very similar to what Frank went through, because put yourself in Karen's shoes. When we met her, she killed someone. She killed them completely, for the right reasons. They were attacking her. She didn't know what else to do, so she killed them. And she had every right to do that. She didn't do anything wrong with that. We know why she had to kill the guy that was coming out here. I can't remember his name right now, but the guy from like the first episode. And she was very similar to Frank, where she didn't think she had any allies, and Foggy and Matt really helped her out because, from going completely crazy. And she really sympathized with Frank because Frank at this point has no one except for her, and they're starting to understand him, and they're exactly what Frank needs. Frank is he's broken. He's broken, and he needs someone like Foggy, Matt, and Karen, and I love the way that that's going. Really great stuff with that scene. Really amazing scene overall. And you really see how much these characters have come. I mean, Matt hasn't really changed in that sense, but Karen has, and I love seeing that. And I feel like Karen's always been this way. This isn't something new. Like, Karen's always thought, vengeance is vengeance. Vengeance, sometimes you need to seek out vengeance for certain things. And in Frank's case, his family was killed. I mean, what was he supposed to do? Just awkwardly stand by? No, in that situation, I mean, he had to kill. He just had to. He needed to get it out some way, and I understand what Karen's trying to say. Is it right necessarily? No, but I do think it's very interesting. So as the door closes, Matt asks Elektra how long she was listening. Elektra reveals herself and claims she wasn't listening. Matt is angered, and Elektra found out more clues about Roxanne at various sites, and Matt knows one of them, and it's tied to Wilson Fisk, and he found blueprints before he fought Nobu. Matt turns down her invitation, goes to investigate, and she goes to do some recon, she says, which is very interesting, and you can tell he really is trying to just be very careful with Elektra. Like, he's helping her, but at the same time, he doesn't really want anything to do with her because he's hiding her from everyone, and he wants to focus on this case. It's clear that's what he wants to focus on, and especially after what just happened with Karen, he really doesn't want anything to do with her right now. So the next day, the medical examiner describes the death of victims of the Punisher, and this is a very important scene. I didn't think this would be as big as it was, but it really was. He looks nervous as Matt approaches, listening to his heartbeat. The medical examiner says he wants to say something on the record, and the judge clears the courtroom, and this is a really interesting scene. He confesses to altering the case files on Frank's reports, and another case from the same day, someone threatened him. A woman broke into his house last night, forced him to confess, and we have to wonder, I mean, was this Elektra? Was this Elektra that did this? I mean, a woman broke into his house. It seems like this was Elektra that he's talking about, he's the man, that the medical examiner is the man that they were just talking to and forced him to confess. I don't know if he's talking about Elektra, but I feel like that has to be the woman. And the judge then strikes the doctor's testimony, continues the trial, and again, it has to be Elektra. It really has to, and I feel like that's what's going on. And Matt then reveals right away that it was Elektra who threatened the medical examiner, and it shows how dangerous she is, and how much, now, Elektra doesn't realize, that, obviously, but it really shows how much she is sabotaging this case. Because while I think, Matt does understand Elektra, he's also understanding her in the sense that she's going to try to complicate literally any other thing in Matt's life because, as far as she's concerned, Matt doesn't need she doesn't want anything but Matt. She wants Matt to be with no one but her, and she just wants to go on these missions with Matt, and as far as she's concerned, she's just going to ruin his life. That's pretty much what she's out to do, and we get this great scene with Foggy and Matt. Finally, we get the scene that I've been waiting for in this episode. Matt reveals that it was Elektra who threatened the medical examiner, and Foggy does, in fact, know Elektra. He reflects on how dangerous she's always been, prompting Matt to reveal that Elektra's trying to take down the Yakuza, and Matt has been trying to help. He reveals that she is the new client, and Foggy's bummed that Matt would lie. He flips his lid on Matt for wanting to take the trial and not being around to prepare, and I understand why Foggy's. I mean, he has to do all this stuff on his own, and he's not even the one that really wanted to do this case. Remember, he didn't want to get involved. He just said, let the police handle it. He was the one that was just, he was kind of on Rey's side where he's like, all right, we'll just let the police handle it, whatever. But now that Matt's not even there, I mean, he's working on a case he doesn't really want to work on, and you can understand why Foggy's really upset here. And Foggy tells Matt that Elektra's not the problem, he is, and I agree. I understand. Elektra's not the problem here. Elektra's not forcing him to do anything. Matt just keeps going to her because he can't say no. I mean, that's really what it is. It's clear that he can't say no. He has this thing with Elektra. He can't just turn her down, and that's his problem. It's not anyone else's problem. No one's forcing him to do this. He himself is just, he keeps going with her, and it's pissing Foggy off, which I understand. So Foggy starts to leave. Matt tries to keep him there. Foggy blows him off, says he won't be coming back to him, and you can see why Foggy's really pissed. I mean, he has a reason to be upset, and I like the way that that was done. Definitely, you can tell why he's really upset. I mean, again, like I said, he's had to do this whole thing on his own without Matt, and obviously he's really upset about that, and I like seeing that. So in the hall, Karen questions what happened. First, Foggy blows her off, then Matt does too, and very interesting the way that they just blew her off like this. I mean, I think they don't want to deal with anything else right now. I mean, this case really, they need to take a break. It's really getting to all of them, and, you know, the thing about Karen is that she is really the odd one out here. I mean, while she is very smart, she has no idea what's going on, and that's what's so sad about this. You know, they obviously have to keep this from her. They don't want to, but they have to keep doing that, and you can tell she definitely is, I think, starting to get a bit like, okay, what's going on? Why is everyone hiding things from me? And she has to think that eventually, because obviously they're being very secretive, especially they're going to keep this secret of what's going on with Elektra, because obviously they're going to, and if Matt doesn't tell her that he's a daredevil, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen there, because Karen's got to find out at some point, definitely. And I think Matt knows that, but I think he's also scared doing that, because he doesn't want the dynamic between Foggy, Matt, and Karen to change. He doesn't want that to happen, and he's worried that if, you know, he tells her what's going on, and especially knowing that she condones killing and that he doesn't kill, I think she's going to think that he's maybe a bit of a coward. Maybe this, you know, we know that she doesn't like Daredevil. There's that as well. She's not a fan of Daredevil. She feels that Daredevil's the reason why killers like, you know, people like Frank are allowed to live. And of course she sympathizes with Frank now, but she still, I don't think, is a fan of Daredevil. She's never really been a fan of him. And I think that's what one of Matt's biggest fears is. I really do like seeing that, and they're really handling that very well. So Elektra observes a pair of trucks in the street. Daredevil attacks her, reveals how mad he is about what she did with a medical examiner. She claims Matt likes to take things in the dark and at night. Daredevil tells her, stay out of her business and just leave him alone. He wants nothing to do with her at this point. And even though he was nice to her, now he's just saying, look, just leave me alone. Daredevil marches downstairs, attacks the Yakuza men outside the building. Brutally, and with a huge focus on hurting them, he knocks over some scaffolding with one man's body as Elektra finally walks up. They enter a garage together and it's dark. Matt tells her that they're alone, and after a brief search, Elektra concludes the place is empty. Daredevil rules the Yakuza were hiding something. He hears something, finds a massive pit in the ground, this huge pit further in the building, drops the flash, takes a very long time for the flash to hit the bottom, and there's this pit. Now, what they're hiding in this pit, we don't know. We don't know what's going on here, why they're, you know, what's in the pit. If there is something in the pit, I don't know really what's going on there. Very interesting what's going on with that. But overall, guys, another amazing episode. I love the way this episode was done. The whole conversation between Foggy and Matt. Like I said, Foggy has a right to be upset. He's given Matt so many chances and so many things to, you know, so many chances to admit what's going on, and Matt just hasn't done it. And obviously, Foggy's really upset about that. Like I said, I have no problem with him being upset. He has every right to be upset with what Matt is doing, and Karen as well. I mean, you really do see that Matt and Karen, they're starting to get a bit distant because they really clash over this one thing. Matt doesn't kill, while Karen doesn't really have a problem with killing. I think that's going to be something that really challenges this relationship, and I think Matt really does care about her. I think that's what it is too. He really cares about her. He doesn't have the heart to tell her that he's Daredevil because obviously she doesn't, you know, she appreciates killing, and he doesn't kill, and also the fact that she's not a fan of Daredevil. There's those two really big things, and I think that's why he's really worried. He's worried that something is definitely going to change between them, and I think that's really what's going on there. I do like that he told Elektra off here. He said, look, just leave me the hell alone. I want nothing to do with you. You're making my life a living hell, because she really is. She's ruining everything for him. She's now ruined the relationship with Foggy, but like Foggy said, it's not her fault. It's Matt's fault, and it is. He's the one that decided to ally with her. He's the one that just didn't tell her to leave in the first place, and I think Matt thought this was a good idea to stick by her, but, you know, obviously it's not turning out well for anyone, and you can understand why Foggy's really upset and why Matt's really upset as well, and definitely very interesting to see what's going to happen there. I can't wait to see what happens in the next episode. What is in this pit? Where are they hiding? That's something I'm definitely interested in seeing. And also Reyes. I mean, Reyes seems to just really want the Punisher in trouble, and who's going to win this case? I can't wait to see how this turns out. This case in general I find very interesting. Who's going to be, you know, who's going to win the case? Is he going to get off guilty or not guilty? I don't know. We'll have to see what's going to happen there. I can't wait to see what's going on with that. But overall, guys, amazing episode as usual. Loving every minute of this season. You guys know that. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of Arrow, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.